The old Victorian house loomed over me, its shadow swallowing me whole as I walked up to it. The gargoyles perched atop the roof seemed to leer down at me, and the overgrown ivy creeping up the side looked like grasping claws. But I didn't care. I was desperate. And this place, abandoned and rumored to be haunted, was my last hope. My name is Alex. I'm a historian with a passion for all things macabre. I travel the country uncovering the dark secrets of long-forgotten tragedies. This time it was this house and the legend of the vanishing man that had brought me here. It was 1872 when Thomas Blackwood, a wealthy landowner, moved into the mansion with his wife and son. Soon after, strange occurrences began plaguing the household. Objects would go missing only to reappear in odd places days later. Unexplained footsteps echoed through the halls at night, and disembodied whispers brushed against their ears. Then one day, Thomas vanished without a trace. His wife and son claimed he'd left for the market and never returned. A search of the house and grounds revealed no sign of foul play, and soon the case went cold. To this day, nobody knows what happened to him, which is why I was standing before his abandoned house in the hopes of solving the mystery. The locals had long since given it a name, Grimstone Manor. Nobody lived there now, and it was rumored to be haunted. Not exactly a great reputation if you're trying to sell a house, but I wasn't afraid. As a matter of fact, I was excited. As I reached the porch, I noticed something peculiar. The door was slightly ajar. Perhaps the lock had just sprung loose. I pushed it open and stepped inside. A chill wind blew through the house, ruffling the dust particles suspended in the air. Moonlight streamed through broken window panes, illuminating cobwebs spun between the furniture like macabre Christmas decorations. I could feel eyes boring into me from the darkness, watching my every move. I shook off the feeling and began to explore. Down the hall, I saw a pair of doors, each bearing the name Blackwood in ornate lettering. One was slightly open, revealing an antique brass bed and a nightshirt lying on the pillow. I crossed the threshold and walked into the room, letting my fingers trace the peeling wallpaper. It was then I heard it, a scraping sound coming from inside the wardrobe. I froze, debating whether I should investigate. Curiosity won out, and I opened the wardrobe door, revealing only hanging shreds of moth-eaten fabric. I sighed in relief and turned to leave when I saw it, a diary resting on the shelf behind the wardrobe. I pulled it out, noticing the leather cover was adorned with what appeared to be a strange symbol. I flipped it open and began reading. It was Thomas's journal, and it chronicled the strange events that had been happening in the house. In his neat, looping script, he wrote of objects moving on their own, shaking beds and flickering lights. He even described hearing footsteps in the attic above his bedroom at night, which sounded exactly like those of a small child. As I continued reading, I realized these weren't just the ramblings of a man who'd lost his mind. Thomas's writing grew increasingly frantic. There was method to the madness, a pattern to the chaos. It was almost as if some malevolent force was trying to communicate with them. I closed the diary, my heart pounding. Was I alone in this house? I strained to listen, hearing nothing but the wind whistling through the cracks. I placed the diary back on the shelf and turned to leave when I felt it, a cold spot in the air that seemed to suck the very breath from my lungs. I spun around to find the source, but there was nothing there. I shook it off, chalking it up to an overly active imagination. But as I made my way through the house, the unsettling feeling of being watched persisted. I found more diaries, each detailing terrifying encounters with whatever entity had invaded their home. And then I came across a nursery with a rocking horse and a crib. Here the entries became more disturbed, speaking of whispering voices and shadows that danced in the moonlight. But it was the final entry that chilled me to the bone. Thomas had written, "The shadows are growing stronger. They move closer, reaching out to us in the darkness. I fear they will drag our souls into their abyss." Then the entries stopped abruptly. What had happened to Thomas? Did the shadows consume him? I shuddered, suddenly understanding the true meaning of the word haunting. As I stood there, the floorboards groaned beneath me, and I could have sworn I heard a child's laughter echoing through the halls. Adrenaline surged through me. I needed to get out of there. I sprinted through the house, dodging furniture and leaping over fallen picture frames. The diary thumped against my chest like a frantic heartbeat. My foot caught on a rug and I stumbled, sending the diary flying. It landed on the floor with a thud, and as I scrambled for it, I saw it. The strange symbol from the cover staring back at me. And in that moment, everything changed. The house seemed to hold its breath, the silence deafening. I felt a presence behind me, unseen eyes boring into my neck. Fear pulsed through me, primal and overwhelming. I turned slowly, expecting to see a grotesque figure, but there was nothing there. I whipped around and fled, crashing through the front door and stumbling onto the lawn. Gasping for breath, I turned to look back at the house. The windows were dark and silent. The gargoyles perched on the roof seemed to mock me, their faces twisted into sneering grins. Had I imagined the whole thing? Was I losing my mind? I couldn't tell. The experience had shaken me to my core. But as the days passed, my fear morphed into obsession. I couldn't stop thinking about the house and the diary. Had Thomas and his family been taken by the shadows, or was there something more sinister lurking within the walls of Grimstone Manor? I had to go back. When I returned, the house seemed less menacing in the daylight, but a sense of foreboding still lingered. Armed with a flashlight and a video camera, I stepped inside. The air was thick with the scent of decay and the weight of untold horrors. As I explored, I noticed something strange. The symbols carved into the furniture, the bedposts, and the fireplace were identical to the one I'd seen in the diary. They looked ancient, like something from a long-forgotten ritual. Then I remembered the diary mentioning a rocking horse. I searched for it, finding it in the corner of what I assumed was the nursery. It was intricately carved, its surface adorned with the same symbol I'd been seeing everywhere. I ran my hand along its back, feeling a sudden jolt. Was this the key to the mystery? That's when I noticed a loose plank in the floorboards. I knelt down and pried it up, revealing a dark hole beneath. I shone my flashlight down the opening, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a staircase leading down into the darkness. I hesitated, then climbed down, each step creaking ominously. At the bottom, I found myself in a musty stone chamber illuminated only by my flashlight. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic and disturbing. In the center of the room stood a stone altar. On it lay a collection of unsettling items, a bloodied meat cleaver, a rusted chain, and a human skull. The sight made my stomach churn. What kind of ritual had taken place here? And what was the connection to the vanishing man? Then I saw it, a small piece of paper lying on the altar. I picked it up and unfolded it, revealing a message scrawled in hurried handwriting. Beware the shadows beyond the door, for they hunger for souls, and they ask for more. Suddenly, the darkness around me seemed to press in, the shadows taking on a life of their own. I felt their cold, clammy fingers curling around my ankles, trying to pull me down into the darkness. I screamed and scrambled back, knocking over the skull. It rolled across the stone altar and stopped at the edge, facing me. Then, as if pushed by an invisible hand, it slid over the edge and fell into the darkness below. I stared into the black abyss, my heart hammering against my ribs. Had I just witnessed a ghost? Or was something more sinister lurking in the shadows? The truth was, I didn't want to find out. I turned and fled, scrambling up the stairs and bursting through the trap door. I didn't stop running until I was far away from Grimstone Manor. Now, years have passed since I uncovered the secrets of Grimstone Manor, but the haunting shadow of that night still lingers in my thoughts. And sometimes, when the moon is full, I swear I can hear the whispers of the vanishing man calling out to me from beyond the door.